Hi guys, so today's video is going to be a list of books that I feel I am biased toward. Recently in my July TBR, I mentioned that I'm going to be picking up Sailor Moon, which was an anime that I really loved as a child, so as an adult I want to finally get around to picking up the manga, and in that video I made it very clear that I have huge nostalgia goggles for Sailor Moon. I'm probably going to enjoy it no matter what. And it kind of got me thinking, what are some other books that I might have a little bit of bias toward? Not because of nostalgia, but just because maybe there's something contributing to me enjoying a book a little bit more. Before I jump into my list, I do kind of want to see your opinions on this particular discussion of having a bias, of potentially liking or even disliking something because of some outside factor, because I see people sometimes saying, oh, well, I've interacted with the author, but that's not going to affect my opinion of the book at all, or this is sponsored, but it's not going to affect my opinion at all. And I'm not saying that those people are lying. I just think that it's kind of impossible. I mean, those are just two examples, but with the books I'm going to talk about, there's so many reasons that we can feel ourselves feeling a certain way towards something, not just based off of the quality. Let me know your thoughts on that particular topic, but jumping into it with my list, I'm going to start with The Stranger by Harlan Coben. I love to do this thing with family members or close friends where I pick up one of their favorite books around their birthday as a little extra birthday present, and this particular one is one that my mom chose. She likes just kind of picking up cozy mysteries or thrillers, things like that. Harlan Coben is her go-to. This is not something I normally would have picked up if not for my mom, and I don't have anything against the genre. I just find I don't lean toward that. I don't gravitate toward that very often, but because it was this opportunity for me to share this passion of mine with my mom who doesn't read that much, it was just like, oh yay, this is something that I absolutely love. I love to read, and knowing that this is something that this particular author, they just really click with my mom's reading tastes. So I was super inclined to want to enjoy this story purely because of that little connection I had with my mom. And that doesn't mean that I actually hated it and I'm just like convincing myself it was good or anything like that. But I definitely think that there's this outside contribution to my enjoyment level of the book. Next up on this list is one that I feel like some of you probably saw from a mile away, and that would be Witcher. I have said before that my love of Witcher started with The Wild Hunt, which is very common. A lot of people got into the books after having played that third video game, which is phenomenal. I loved the video game so much. I felt like I knew the characters so well already that reading the books felt just like getting their backstory. I also just think it's very common anytime you already have a visual aid to help you see the world, help you see the characters, when you have their voices in your head from some kind of adaptation, then when you go into it, if you looked at that adaptation favorably, you're probably going to hear those voices when you're reading. You're going to see the scenery the way you saw it in the adaptation. So I am pretty honest about that. In general, I'm always talking about how I love the video game and it's affected it, but just a little FYI, I absolutely have a bias towards this, if you didn't already know. Next up would be Full Metal Alchemist, and this is for very similar reasons to Witcher. I was first introduced to Full Metal Alchemist through Full Metal Alchemist Brotherhood, which I love so much. I love that adaptation, and I absolutely feel like it has contributed to my enjoyment of the story. Even just the voices, again, like with Witcher, the voices of the characters, the jokes, like I already know the jokes are coming, and then when I see them, I'm like, ah ha ha ha. I just feel like I'm in on the inside joke. I just love it so much that to get it again in just a different format, I'm like, yes please, yes please. This next one is perhaps the most controversial on this list as far as when I do reviews and things like that, and I will elaborate on why, and that would be Crown of Feathers and its sequel Heart of Flames by Nikki Powell-Preto. So I read this book and really enjoyed it, and then I saw the author was looking for fans of the story to be a part of their street team. And for those that don't know, a street team is kind of like, hey, you get sneak peeks, you get potential opportunities for giveaways or arcs or things like that because you're fans. And I was like, well, heck, I want to do that because I liked the story. And in being a part of the street team, I have seen the author a little bit more than maybe you would just typically on social media and stuff. And I just think she's super cool and I really, really like her. So I feel like anytime somebody has a little extra exposure to an author, if they like that author, I just feel like it's impossible to not want to also then like their book. And I feel like this is almost a taboo topic because I think it's common for people on booktube, bookstagram, things like that to do author interviews or to interact with authors through street teams and other things like that. And rather than be honest in saying, you know what, I like this author and I really hope I like their book, or being upfront about, I've talked to the author, they're really cool, and then just letting people know that so that viewers have that knowledge and can go into reviews of those works knowing like, oh, well, this person might have a little bit of a bias. Instead of being honest and upfront about that, I almost feel like people are scared to admit that they might have a bias because they absolutely hate the idea that somebody is going to see their view as anything other than objective. And I'm like, you know what? Yeah, I liked this first one. I also liked the second one. I'm not lying about my enjoyment of the story. I did enjoy the story, but is it very possible that deep down, maybe I might want the author to be successful? Probably. It's probably very, very realistic to confront that in myself. That's why I'm doing this whole video, so that you guys can go into reviews of these works, or when I talk about these works, you can be like, well, she like just, you know, like Sailor Moon. I know I'm gonna like it because of my nostalgia. Why should I be ashamed to admit that? Isn't that more informative to all of you? Anyway, I kind of got off on a little bit of a tangent there. I do really like this book. I do really like its sequel a lot. I liked the relationship between the characters. I like the politics. I like the pacing. There's so much about it. I like the phoenixes. Those are cool. But I also think the author is a cool lady. I'm going to add really quick too that the same thing can happen in reverse. Somebody who it's visible that they have had some kind of interaction or relationship with the author of a book that they're reviewing, they might then be so concerned that people are going to be worried that they're going to be biased, that they then are extra critical, or they are looking for things to pick apart with the story. That's another possibility, which is why I just feel like we should be more open about, yeah, I probably have some kind of bias. I might have accidentally been too critical with this, or I might maybe not be as critical, or maybe my word choice is a little softer than it would be otherwise. Anyway, back to our regular scheduled programming. The next one on this list would be the Stormlight Archive series, and this maybe seems strange because I do love Brandon Sanderson's works a lot, and I like Stormlight Archive a lot. I've probably made more videos about Stormlight Archive, this and Witcher. I've probably made the most amount of videos about those two series than any other, but I love the character Kaladin so much in this story that I have a feeling that no matter what, it could be a dumpster fire of a story, and I'm gonna be like, but what's gonna happen to Kaladin? I just made an entire video dedicated to Kaladin. Like, my love of him is deep, and I feel like if the fourth book, Rhythm of War, if it comes out and I don't like it, I'm still gonna be like, I just love Kaladin, I have to read the next one. Have you ever had that happen? You love a character so much that it's possible that you might not even like the book, but you're like, I just like this character so much. And I do like these stories. I think these books are phenomenal. So I'm not saying like garbage, but Kaladin, he's great. But I do think that it's possible that I could end up wanting to keep going. And like, I guess is what I'm saying. I might find things. The fourth book could be terrible, but I'll look for other things besides just Kaladin. Like, I'll try to convince myself, like, oh, well, but, like, this thing was really well done, or, like, well, this was interesting. I'm gonna find other things so that I'm not just reading it for Kaladin, when secretly it's possible that if it's not good, I would just keep going for Kaladin. I do really love this series, though, so hopefully. I mean, I should have faith. Sanderson, I have loved almost every single thing that I picked up by him, and he writes a lot, and so I've picked up a lot. Next up on this list would be the Cyborg Tinker, and this is another one that's kind of like Crown of Feathers, but this time I know the author and I knew her before reading her book. Her story is kind of a steampunk science fiction action adventure romance. I don't really read romance. I don't mind romantic subplots. I don't even care if the romance is pretty much at the forefront of a fantasy story. I used to feel kind of differently, but now I'm like, if it's done well, that's okay. But I don't really read kind of, you know, explicit type romance stories. And so I feel like her story is a romance book, but it's steampunk, it's action adventure. It's definitely really fast paced, but my point is that I really like Meg a lot. I think she's delightful. I think she's lovely. I think she does a lot to help the writing community. I think she's incredibly supportive of other people, but I would never have picked up her book otherwise because that is just so not my thing. And I was pretty honest in being like, I don't normally pick up these kinds of books, so take my opinion as you will. Like, it's just, I don't read that very much. Next up on this list would be House of Salt and Sorrows. I kind of sort of buddy read this with my friend Jade from Bedtime Bookworm, and this is another part of this conversation that I feel that we should be more open about, which is kind of sort of FOMO, which is the fear of missing out, and this idea that you just so badly want to like something because other people that you like are liking it. So I kind of hinted at that with my mom, the book that she wanted me to read, but like that's not really the same thing. I'm more talking about when you have a buddy read, or when somebody that you likes something a lot, you're then maybe deep down liking that book more than you would have because that person enjoyed it. This isn't always the case, of course. I'm constantly talking about how I'm friends with Jashana from the channel Jashana C, and she loved Aeronauts Windless, and I picked up that book and I did not love Aeronauts Windless, so I'm not saying it's gonna happen every single time, but I do think there are times that when you're interacting with another person, whether it's through a buddy read or you are friends with them and they like something or they hate something, I think sometimes you might be inclined to feel similar. And with this one, I had such a good time with this book. I thought it was so much fun and it was creepy and scary, but I felt like I got to like experience it with my friend Jade because she was reading it at the same time, and I like want my mom to read this so that I can be like, Mom, wasn't that one part really creepy? I'm such a pansy. This isn't even that scary of a book, but it's like why we see scary movies. It's just the experience of like being scared together and things like that. Anyway, that is it for some books that I think I'm a little biased toward. Maybe a little extra biased is a better way to put it, because I think technically everybody's a little biased toward every single book because we all are individuals and we all have our own life experiences that are going to affect our enjoyment of a story. Let me know if there are any books that you are biased toward and that you absolutely know it. But anyway, thanks so much for watching. I hope you have a great rest of your day, and I'll see you guys later. Bye.